Hello everyone, welcome to Melyn Talk Support Matchups. Today I'm going to be talking about Karma. So Karma's really popular in the current patch right now for a variety of reasons, maybe most prominently that she was already strong beforehand and she has a lot of natural synergy with these preseason 7 item changes, okay? So we see her a lot, and one of the most important things to talk about when talking about any support champion that's like a shielding champion, so think Janna, Karma, Morgana, champions like those, is that it fundamentally changes how you harass in the lane, okay? Because think of the typical harass for Zyra, okay? It's QW auto attack. But if your enemy has a shield, then that small but very often harass actually gets mitigated almost entirely because the shield will negate most of that damage. Okay, so when you play against this shield champion, you can still poke. But you have to poke in a slightly different way. You have to poke more heavily. So that may be a QWW combo, or maybe, in an ideal situation, EWQW combo. All right, so it has to be more committed poke, which either means using more spells from you or having synergy with your AD carry and harassing at the same time to negate, or also doing AoE poke, so you can poke the person with the shield and the person without the shield. Okay. So these are some the first thing you kind of want to keep in mind when you're playing against the shielding champion. Another thing to mention kind of in this preliminary section is Zyra can block some of Karma's natural tendencies, okay? So remember, a very common thing to do with Zyra is to block skill shots with an EW combo. And a lot of Karmas tend to have a very maybe telegraphed all-in combo. Say you're getting ganked or something, the very typical thing for a Karma to do is speed and shield herself up, put the tether on you, wait for the tether to root you, and then use an empowered Q with her ultimate, okay? But if you see that coming, if you see that it's happening, you can plan ahead and EW the Karma right before the tether's going to land, and that's going to block her empowered Q, and you can actually save a lot of the damage, okay? So that's definitely something to be aware of when playing against Karma, is when she's all-inning you, try to use a plant to explode her Q early so you can protect yourself from taking that damage. Another just kind of general laning tip against Karma is to try to stay behind minions at all times. Zyra can harass through minions no problem, Karma not so much. That being said, don't stand too close to the minions because then the Q will explode on the minions and still damage you anyway. So, a healthy range behind the minions is usually where you want to be against a Karma. Finally, I would also recommend an Emax in a Karma lane. So remember, as Zyra in lane, you can max Q, you can max E, they're both very good. Q max is if you want better poke, E max is if you want better all-in. I usually prefer the stronger all-in potential with an E max against Karma, because and I usually prefer the same thing against all kinds of shielding champions, because the little but often harass is not usually very useful for breaking through shields. Usually we need to commit a little harder to do meaningful damage. All right, so that's basically it for the preliminaries, the fundamentals. Let's talk about a bit about the early game, levels 1, 2, and 3, and then how to deal with Karma and things to be aware of against a Karma in the mid and late game. So level 1 is maybe the most interesting thing about playing against Karma, because she has her ultimate and her Q, so she can do a lot of poke if you're not careful. So usually what you want to do is, again, stand behind the waves to protect yourself from the poke. Also, don't stand right on top of the AD carry. If one of you does happen to get poked, it's best that it doesn't poke both of you. Not to mention, even just thinking of a normal Karma Q, not the empowered one, but a normal Karma Q that wouldn't ordinarily hit you may still hit you if it hits your AD carry and you're nearby, okay? So watch for that and try to shove the wave in general. Usually in these matchup videos, I say get an early level 2. This one's a little more important than most for the early level 2. So try to push the wave, try to auto attack when you can, but mostly you're playing around the Karma's Q cooldown, especially the ultimate Q on the Karma. Level 2 is important because it gives you access to your harass, more reliable harass, Also, I recommend starting Q as Zyra into Karma. E level 1 is going to give you very, very few options. So that's the general level 1 strategy. Pretty typical on average, but hopefully helpful. As for level 2, this is where things get a little more interesting because Karma can either take her tether or her shield level 2. And what spell the Karma levels up at level 2 kind of says a lot about what she expects from the laning phase. So a Karma will often go tether level 2 if she's looking for kill pressure. And this can be very punishing if you're harassing and you overextend if you're out too far, because the tether will root you and probably give you a good reason to flash. However, a Karma may also level shield level 2, in which case it's more of a passive, more of a poking play style. In which case, be aware of that. And the reason why this is so important is not only for what the Karma wants to do, but also what you plan to do in response. For example, if a Karma has tether level 2, you think, okay, she doesn't have shield yet, I can get more poke off. But I have to be very careful not to move too far forwards, because if I ever get into tether range, I might be dead. Likewise, if Karma has shield, you can be a little bit more aggressive, but know that your poke is not going to hit as hard, and maybe just wait until level 3. So usually if a Karma goes shield level 2, I will play a little bit more passive and wait till I have access to all my spells to actually try to get meaningful damage on the lane. And again, just kind of a reminder of the typical play pattern against the Karma is to try to get your QW harass at a time when the Karma's Q is on cooldown, or when you can bait it out. So when you're getting your harass, don't just move forward very predictably, move forward and then move back and try to bait out the Q, and then you can get your harass off. Also, I shouldn't forget this. One of the great things, and again, this is kind of like Korean advice, but one of the great things you can do against a Karma or any shielding champion is to try to QW both the Karma and the AD carry. Because what this can do, even if you don't hit both, act like you're hitting both, it can make the Karma shield the other person. So say, and then you can auto attack whichever one she doesn't shield, or, if you don't have that good of reaction time, just auto attack whichever, and you have a 50% chance that the Karma is going to shield the wrong target, and you can get a good amount of damage off, even with Karma using the mana for her shield. And in general, you can kind of start to play mind games similarly with how Sivers use their spell shields, kind of guess, okay, if I act like I'm going to attack both of them, which one is the Karma going to shield? Is she a selfish support, or is she a selfless support? And that's a lot of the interesting things about level 2. So level 2 against Karma is quite exciting in general. Level 3, you get all of your spells, and here's when you can finally start to expect like health bars to go down. You can get a good chunk off with an EW QW combo that can break through the shield. Another thing you want to watch out for is once you do that, don't fight in a long trade, because once you do that, you break through the shield. That's great, but the Karma still has spells, whereas you don't, and you're not going to have plans for a long time afterwards. So be very, very careful whenever your spells are on cooldown, not to overextend. And this is one of the reasons why in general I don't recommend using your second seed and your E as harass, because it leaves you very, very vulnerable. But against shielding champions, if you actually do want meaningful harass, you will have to commit more in order to break the shield. All right, so again, a reminder for something that's going to happen very often in level 3 is the Karma might shield herself, run at you, tether you, and then use an empowered Q. If they ever try to do that, teach them very, very quickly why they should not. EW to block the Karma empowered Q, and you'll have a very favorable trade on your hand. So last thing I want to mention about laning phase for Karma is how you want to play the lane. So there's a few decisions you can make, kind of depending on how your AD carry is playing and maybe the champion of the AD carry. If it's a snowbally AD carry or someone who's very aggressive, then you will in turn want to be very aggressive to back them up. And if you decide to be aggressive against the Karma, here's your strategy. It's going to be doing an EW QW combo to get significant poke off and break through the shield. The best time to do that is when the enemy AD carry is going for a last hit. They tend to be very predictable in last hitting because they have to be. And even if they end up not getting hit by your skill shot, that does mean you still denied him a CS. So usually this is best on ranged minions and cannon minions. Ranged minions because they're closer to you, and cannon minions because nobody wants to miss a cannon minion. So that's one scenario. Another scenario is maybe your AD carry is really safe. Maybe it's an Ezreal. Maybe it just wants to scale or something like that. In which case you're kind of just harassing just to get gold from your spell thieves, which is okay. Zyra is a lane bully, and I do believe she should be used as a lane bully, but sometimes our AD carries just say, hey, we don't want to do that. Or maybe they have a Twisted Fate mid and a Gangplank top and a Rengar jungle or something, and so you're expecting 5-man bot all the time. You can just play safe and just do, very safe QW combos to harass to get all the gold from your spell thieves to transition into the mid game as best as possible. That's okay too. The most important thing about both of these scenarios is to be aware of what you are choosing. Don't just do something just because. Think about it, communicate with your AD carry, and have a game plan. And that should get you through the laning phase. There's nothing really else to talk about. For a lot of times I'll talk about level 6 here as well, but Karma doesn't really get an ultimate at level 6. She already has her ultimate. So all that really happens is you become significantly stronger with your ultimate. Don't get baited by her shield and her speed up. And that actually kind of transitions us into talking about Karma in the mid and late game. So specifically, don't underestimate Karma's ulted shield. So it's an AoE shield that gives everyone a shield and a speed up. So a lot of times we'll get excited, we'll snare, and then we'll use our ultimate, the full combo, we'll just spam all of our buttons on the enemy team. But with an enemy team that's AoE sped up and has an AoE shield, it's very likely they're just going to run away and kind of laugh at you for wasting a very, very big cooldown. So don't get baited by it, and wait to use your ultimate. In general, this is a good Zyra tip. Don't use your ultimate too early. You should use your ultimate not just to knock up as many people as you can, but also to split up the enemy team. So wait until their front line has committed before using your ultimate. And then, of course, try to get as many plants as possible. Hopefully you can split up the team. This is especially important against a Karma because teams with the Karmas are going to have more shields and more speed. Which, again, I have all these perfect transitions today, is another thing to be talking about as well. What does Karma usually build? Most Karmas will often build shield-related items like Locket, which has gotten buffed to have a really big shield, even though it doesn't give the MR aura anymore, and Redemption, which is going to help her shields, help her heals, and it has, that big circle that will heal and do damage to you, okay? So it's very, very easy to get baited by one of these. Make sure to wait. Wait until the right time to use your skills. Otherwise, you're just going to end up wasting them and be at a significant disadvantage. All right, so that's kind of basically it for Karma. Kind of an annoying champion. I don't know whether it's favorable one way or the other, but there's a lot of nuances and a lot of a give and take and opportunities for interesting things to happen. So hopefully this gave you some ideas on things you can do and things to watch out for. Thank you everyone for watching, and may your enemies feel the thorns embrace.